Today we're going to take things to another level. We've already been making some very simple tools. They principally run in a single HTML page. They maybe pull in some JavaScript and some CSS, but they're not very complicated and you can run them anywhere. Today, what we're going to do is use a PHP framework called Laravel. There's going to be a database in there. We're going to have some other frameworks like Livewire and so on in there. People are going to be able to log into the application and so on. So this is much more akin to a full web app. What we're going to build today is a kind of a rota scheduling tool for volunteers who volunteer to do various sessions throughout the year, and we're going to try and spread those evenly, and people have different qualifications, so there are criteria as to who can do which sessions and so on. So first, let's start off by installing a new Laravel project. You can see I'm typing Laravel new, and then the third parameter is the name of the project, so we're going to call it rota. Now it asks which kind of starter kit I want to use. I'm going to use Livewire. This doesn't matter too much. It doesn't really impact the way that Claude codes. We're going to use Laravel's built-in authentication. Authentication is essentially registering, logging in, checking users' permissions, resetting passwords, all that kind of stuff. And that's to do with Livewire as well. Okay, so you want to install Boost? Yes, we do, because that really helps Claude. That puts in a whole bunch of documentation about Laravel and things in the ecosystem of Laravel, like Alpine, Livewire, all these kinds of things. So what's happening now is Composer, which is the package manager for PHP, is going away, collecting all the things that it needs to install Laravel, all the various packages, and it's now asking us if we want to install Herd MCP. So Herd is a free tool. Well, there's a pro version as well, but Herd allows us to run a local server that has PHP in there and all the bits and pieces that we need for Laravel, so we can build and test stuff locally. Now it's asking what AIs we're actually going to use, what we're going to use in the project. So obviously we can use PHP Storm, which we have here, and Claude Code. It's asking us which agents we need. Claude Code. Junie is the one from the people that create PHP Storm, but I'm not going to install that. Right, so essentially that's done, and now it's asking us if we want to run npm to compile all the assets. That's the JavaScript and the CSS and so on, so that you actually can see the various pages. And Laravel is now installed. Now, don't worry too much, if that didn't make any sense to you, you can just follow along and replicate this. Now, I'm going into the Rota project folder, just going to look and see if all the files are there by typing ls, which is for list. And of course, we're going to start out in the same way that we have in the other projects. We're going to have a spec file. So I'm now typing touch spec.md, which means create a file called specmd, and let's see if it's in there. See, the difference is this time all of these files are over on the left hand side. They're all of the Laravel files. So it's created my specmd, and I've cut and pasted from an earlier session the spec that I wrote. So let's take a look and see what that spec actually says. So you can see that in the beginning I'm specifying some things like I want you to use filament PHP, which is normally used in administration panels. using bullet points to outline some of the functionality that I'd like to see. I'm saying volunteers should be able to log in to Laravel, see their own activities. I want to have a certain amount of data in there, so I'm saying 3 years worth, 14 months of which should be in the past, because there's some analytics and charts and so on. So I want to see a decent amount of data over the course of multiple years. And I'm saying that, I'd like to see this kind of thing laid out in calendar layouts and so on. I then go on to outline what the types of activities are, what takes place when. Weekly walks require volunteers to have various clearances and so on. So essentially there are qualifications and requirements for each type of activity, and that's what makes it more difficult to create a rota, because you can't simply say off you go, build, we have 10 volunteers and 100 activities, because then you just divide it up between the number of volunteers. It's a bit more complex than that. There has to be someone that leads the activity, and maybe someone that's more junior that you're training. There has to be certain clearances and so on, so that people are allowed to work with vulnerable people. So it actually makes the process of building these rotas much more complex. Okay, so I have instantiated Claude by typing Claude, and we can see here at the bottom just saying that there should be stats widgets and so on. So I'm putting it into planning mode using Shift Tab to go through planning mode, accept edits, and then just the regular mode. But planning mode is definitely the one that you want to use all the time when you're giving it a spec, because it goes away, thinks about things, presents you with the plan, and then you can iterate on that plan. Okay. So now I'm giving it the prompt. I'm being very polite. I could just say read the spec and do what's in there, but hey, nothing wrong with being polite and encouraging when it comes to Claude. I'm being explicit that I want it to make a plan, even though it's in planning mode. Okay.